Folks, I thought we would be done with these nail biters, these games that are just so stressful on the road after the USC win, but I was wrong. Dead wrong. We got another one today. Penn State 26, Minnesota 25. The Nittany Lions escape. It was crazy. One of the wackiest games I've ever seen. It was pure madness. I was losing my hair. I'm yelling. I'm celebrating. It was a phenomenal college football game if you are not a fan of either team. If you're watching, hoping for a good game, hoping for a top team to get upset or be on upset, it was awesome. But I was stressed as hell for the entirety of the game. Penn State goes down 10-0. They then fight their way back, and then from there it's like punch for punch, haymaker, haymaker, and then eventually Penn State wills it out. They now finish the season 5-0 on the road. First time in James Franklin's tenure that he has been undefeated on the road in a season. And we'll just get right into it. This is a game that I had scheduled. I had clocked it in the preseason. I was like, this is going to cause me a lot of anxiety. This game, you could go back to my preseason preview. I said, I am worried about Minnesota on November 30th. Because, and I alluded to in one of my videos earlier, it's like Game of Thrones. For any Game of Thrones fans out there, the trope is that the Starks, they don't do well when they go south. The Nittany Lions do not do well. They don't fare well when they go to Minnesota. Crazy stuff happens. PJ Fleck, that team is always frisky. I hate playing them. I hate playing Minnesota, especially on the road in this spot where you can just smell a playoff berth. It was screaming upset. Penn State, they fall to Minnesota and the season just goes out the window. That being said, now that we won the game, I imagine a lot of people in the national media will say, well, okay, you beat Minnesota. They're unranked. Okay, who cares? And trust me, I still have a lot of concerns about this team as a playoff team. I still don't think we're the number 4 team in the country, but we found ways to win. When there are other teams, plenty of other teams in the country, that are losing these games. Ole Miss today. Dude, you went out. You're probably in the playoff as one of the highest ranked SEC teams. They can't beat Florida. Florida, pesky team. Ole Miss, way superior talent-wise. They've invested so much into this season. After they beat us in the Peach Bowl last year, you expected them to really go on a run in 2024. They're probably not going to make the playoff anymore. Colorado, win out and you're in. And you get Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, the Heisman, in the playoff. They're out now. They're not making. BYU's probably not making it. Like, so many teams, and we've seen it throughout the course of the season, all they have to do is win. And they have a path. Penn State, regardless of whatever hesitations you have about them, and trust me, I watch the team every single week. I have a ton of hesitations. They have found a way to win in insane ways. Today was another insane way, falling behind 10-0, and then they work their way back in, and then it's just throwing haymakers back and forth the rest of the game, and then they have that insane drive, which we'll talk about a lot. It was not perfect, but resilient and strong, and a message like, hey, there are a lot of teams falling. We're finding ways to stack up these W's, except against Ohio State, which we could also get into that as well. Indiana got, roundhouse today. Dominated in the second half. Didn't even look like they deserved to be on the field with Ohio State. We hung around. I still think Ohio State controlled the vast majority of that game, and we did not deserve to win that game, even though we did have a chance at the end. But we're pretty solid. We're pretty solid. I think we definitely have a lot of problems, which I'll get to. But for everybody nitpicking and saying like, oh, the strength of schedule isn't that great for Penn State. No, they're celebrating a win over Minnesota on the road. There's more to it than that. Also, for all the people pointing to the strength of schedule, not everybody has Georgia's strength of schedule. Georgia plays 3 top 10 teams. Ohio State plays 3 top 5 teams, and everybody's like, oh, well, this is crazy. Look at Penn State's played nobody. Penn State's played a decent amount of people. We're still top 30, top 40 in strength of schedule, and we're going to finish 11-1, assuming we beat Maryland next week, and we're going to have a prime playoff spot. Should be a home playoff game, so we'll see. But yeah, just people like who are just like blah, 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 blah. Like this, the SEC fans were like, oh, Penn State doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. What are you talking about? Yeah, I get it. Like maybe we don't deserve to be in a 14 playoff, but we're definitely a top 12 team in the country. We're going to be 11-1. And yes, while those teams on the road didn't necessarily pan out to be as good as we thought they were, a win week 1 in Morgantown, that was awesome. We thumped them. Beating USC on the road when they were desperate to keep their season alive, coming back and winning in epic fashion, that was awesome. Beating Wisconsin in Camp Randall. Oregon almost slipped up in Camp Randall against Wisconsin. That was awesome. And then this today, this was a trap game. I've had this scheduled on my calendar for a long time because I was very worried about this game. They found a way to pull out a win, and that should be celebrated. So enough about the playoff and the big picture here. I just want to focus on this game. We'll focus on the positives. We'll just go right into that drive to end the game. This was an FU drive that I have not seen from Penn State. I don't know if I've ever seen it from Penn State in the James Franklin era. We had it go against us in the Ohio State game a couple weeks ago, where Ohio State gets the ball back on their own 1 yard line with 5 minutes left to play, and they just ran it down our throats. This was not like that, but it was taking matters into your own hands and saying, we're going to end this game on our terms. And we are not giving this ball back to Minnesota. We're running this clock out or scoring a touchdown. And that's exactly what they were able to do. The 4th down play call, where we fake the punt and it's a direct snap to Luke Reynolds, it is the gutsiest play call of James Franklin's career. It is the play call that I think, without exaggeration, possibly saved the season for Penn State. Saved the playoff hopes. Saved us from falling and getting upset. It was, and I'm still baffled that we called it up. I'm still baffled that we dialed it. And the fact that we put Luke Reynolds in that situation, a freshman, and he's able to scamper for 30 yards after that, and it works, and it's just this holy shit, pardon me, middle finger, no, we're keeping this ball, and we're running this. I still can't believe it. And for everybody who criticizes James Franklin and shits on him nonstop, and I am one of those people, occasionally. I still love him. I still think, it's really hard to find somebody who would be better than him in this spot. But I've definitely said some things about him before that I think were justified, and I critiqued him, and I just, there are parts of James Franklin I don't like, and the fact that he can't win big games, but regardless, put all the criticism aside, that moment was an unbelievable play call that I think is a defining moment of this season, where we could have punted that away and we could have left it in the defense's hands, and there's a good chance maybe we lose that game on a game-winning field goal in the last seconds. James Franklin says, no, we're keeping it, and it worked to perfection. It was phenomenal execution, and the balls in that spot to dial that play, it was spectacular. I couldn't believe it. I was mad because I watched the games on CBS. I watch them on Paramount Plus, and it's behind cable. It's 30 seconds behind cable. So I check Twitter in between plays, and then I realize I see all these people tweeting Luke Reynolds, Luke Reynolds. I'm like, why are people tweeting Luke Reynolds? And sure enough, then I see the play unfold in front of me. So I got it spoiled for me, but it was still awesome. And Luke Reynolds, that's a play. I tweeted out legacy play. This is a youngster who just got himself a signature moment in a big-time game, which, again, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that saved the season, because I don't have a lot of faith that the defense would have been able to hold Minnesota to 0 points. Yeah, it was spectacular. And just going for it again on the tush push, and then going for it again, and Drew seals the deal with a beautiful play where he's moving around in the pocket, he's sensing pressure, and then eventually he goes all the way to the opposite side of the field, sees Warren wide open. Warren, the beautiful man that he is, catches it, falls down in bounds, game over. It was amazing. And we'll just get right into Drew as well. Drew Aller, man, came into this game completing over 70% of his passes, finished with a 75% completion rate today, had an effortless 50-yard bomb to Amari Evans. It was good to see him get going. And there was also another play later in the game that Drew was a bit rushed on. Also had Amari Evans wide open on a very similar deep ball, and they just couldn't connect. But it was good to see. Regardless, the stones on him, the moxie on him. He had 2 drives in this game. The one going right into the half, where, yeah, he was aided by the pass interference call, which I saw people saying online, like, oh, Penn State was gifted that touchdown. What do you mean they were gifted that touchdown? Bizarre. It was a 2nd and 4. It wasn't like it was a 3rd down or a 4th down where we were able to essentially convert and pick up a new set of downs because of that pass interference call. No, it was 2nd and 4. The drive was still fully alive, even if that pass interference call isn't called, which, by the way, it was a horrendous pass interference call. It was not pass interference at all. But to say, oh, yeah, Penn State was gifted a touchdown, what are you talking about? Probably would have picked up the first down regardless. And, yeah, we moved to the 40 of Minnesota after that call, and still had to go 40 yards after that play. And, yeah, you couldn't stop Drew Aller because he was on fire. Had a brilliant back shoulder throw to Tyler Warren, and it was a great snag by Tyler Warren. And then I think he had the next pass was a rifle to Amari Evans, and then he just decides to take it himself and run it into the end zone. Well, he got a shot to the rib cage, and he comes up with a big drive for us, which of course then was screwed over by us not being able to block anybody on the extra point. But that was a big-time drive where Minnesota had all of a sudden taken a lot of the momentum back, pretty much all the momentum. They're up 17-10, and we have a minute to go get points. He gets us into the end zone. It was amazing. And he's just, yeah, like I said, just balls on him. It's crazy. But then the second drive, we're down 22-16, and he's able to hit Tyler Warren 3 straight plays in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And then it only took 2 more runs from, I think it was K-Tron and then Nick. Maybe it was Nick both times. But regardless, Nick Singleton powers it into the end zone. It was so quick. It was like a minute both times. Minute at the end of the half, a minute to take the lead, 23-22. He's just got so much command and so much poise over this offense. And the beauty of today, and again, this is a huge credit to Franklin. They caught this moment on camera. And if I'm, Penn State football, if I'm Penn State athletics, I'm pointing this moment out, and I'm using this as like a recruiting tactic. There was the whole miscommunication between Drew Aller and Tyler Warren on the terrible pooch punt. And Drew Aller runs to the sidelines, and he's furious, and he's throwing his helmet, which, even though, yes, it was a bit of a tantrum, pardon me, I like seeing that from Drew Aller, because one of my biggest gripes with him this entire time, especially last year, was that he just was too quiet and didn't have this persona, didn't have this charisma of a star quarterback. Now I think he has that. And he's very emotional, and he's yelling, and he's getting into it. And this time he was really visibly pissed. And James Franklin walks over to him, calms him down, says, hey, like, we need you here. We need some composure. And sure enough, it was right after that where Drew Aller goes out and just starts slinging it. So huge credit to Drew Aller. And then, like I said, that the tush push and then the beautiful play to seal it, that last play of the game to Tyler Warren where he's moving around and feeling, he's just unreal. Best Penn State quarterback I've ever seen. Obviously, accomplishments-wise, it might not show it. Statistics, I can't talk today. Accomplishments-wise, won't really show it. Statistics, there we go. Statistics-wise, probably won't show it either. He's not going to break a whole lot of records, but in terms of the eye test, he's the best Penn State quarterback I've ever seen. And I have all the trust in the world in him. I just worry that he doesn't have a whole lot of trust in his receivers, which we will get to. And then Tyler Warren, the other big story of the day, has another 100-yard receiving game. He is really like the entire offense. It's him and Drew Aller, and that's pretty much it, because the run game was really struggling today. We really needed him to step it up and get a lot of production out of him. He did everything he was asked to do and did it perfectly. So he's just a freak of nature. And I was not joking last week when I said he is absolutely deserving of an invite to the Heisman ceremony in New York. Doesn't mean he's going to get one. Doesn't mean that it should happen, but if you look at how he impacts his team, the team that's number 4 in the country, probably going to go 11-1 and host a home playoff game, yeah, I'd say that's pretty meaningful. The fact that he is quite literally the entire offense. It all flows through him, and it's been amazing to see what he's been able to do this year. So Also, I want to give credit, by the way, to Ryan Barker. Ryan Barker for going positives and star playmakers of the day. Zane Durant should be thrown in there as well. Ryan Barker came onto this team as a walk-on, was thrust into a starting role because Sander Sahadak couldn't hit anything. Comes in very first game in a weird environment at USC against a really, like I said, desperate team. Goes 4 for 4 with a game winner in overtime. It has been almost perfect. He missed one field goal out of, 10 or 11 tries now? And he's so on the money. It's almost right down the middle every single time. He drills it. Had 2 huge field goals today. And, I love that guy. Love Ryan Barker. What a story. And you cannot take him for granted if you're a Penn State fan because, hell, we just had it with Sander Sahadak. We've had kickers in the past that have not been so reliable. We were in a really, really bad situation with our entire special teams unit. Ryan Barker has been able to come in and put some of that at ease and put aside those issues and just narrow in, drill field goals, and give us some much-needed points. He gave us the points today. Got to give him all the credit in the world. So, Penn State finds a way to get it done. James Franklin has found a way now to get it done a couple of different times this year in situations where typically that's not the case and we lose these games. What is it now, 29 or 30 straight wins over unranked opponents? He's been dominant each of the last 3 years against everybody except Ohio State and Michigan. You got to give him a ton of credit after this game. Ton of credit. And yeah, just the guts on that final. 5 minutes, 48 seconds. That was the drive. 5 minutes, 48 seconds. Running it out. Saying, no, we're going to go for it on 4th down 3 times. Crazy. Now, part of the reason we had to go for it on 4th was because we were 1 of 11 on 3rd down today. Just sucked on 3rd down. But again, that's a huge credit to the team for everything that went wrong today. The fact that they're still able to pull out a Big Ten road win in that weird environment that we've struggled in the past. Huge kudos to them. That being said, let's get to the negatives of this game because there are a lot. There are a lot of negatives. I've written them down. Finally, I've taken notes and actually come prepared for these instead of just ranting and repeating the same stuff over and over again. The defense is still a problem. I don't have any faith in this defense at all. The eye test is not favorable to this defense. I can't say, I'm breaking down. I can't say statistics. The statistics, thank you, behind this defense, they indicate that this is one of the best defenses in the country. I don't see it at all. I don't see it when I watch this team today. Minnesota is not an explosive team at all. They got a pretty decent amount of explosive plays. They are the second to last team in the Big Ten in rushing yards per game. Second worst. This first half, they were able to run the football. They were moving down the field largely because of their ability to run the football on us. They were getting like 6-7 yards a carry, seemingly like almost every single time. Obviously, stats-wise, that wasn't true. But it was so common where you'd see first down, they got 7 yards. Second down and long, they were able to get 5 yards here. They were able to get pretty much whatever they wanted to in the first half, and that is a problem. This is not an offense that should have had as much success today as they did, and we let them. And Abdul Carter, for the most part, was pretty neutralized. He finished with 3 tackles, only one of them was solo. Didn't have a single tackle for loss. Didn't have a single sack either. He was, I don't want to say irrelevant, but he was a non-factor. He was not causing chaos like he has been to date. That was a concern. They came back in the second half and shut down the running game, but the run game in the first half, they weren't able to stop. Brosmer was able to get pretty decent amount of chunk plays through the air. Plenty of times I'm watching, I'm like, this zone defense, it's just horrid because there are these receivers that are open. And if we're playing man, if we're getting to the quarterback, whatever the case is, I don't think they're as open. But Tom Allen loves to play zone, loves to confuse them with coverages and all sorts of stuff, whatever. Point being, I thought this defense was unreliable in the first half. They got way better in the second half, as they have done all year. But I still did not trust them, and I think it's a large part of the reason why Franklin decided, no, we're going for it every single time on fourth, and we're not giving the ball back to Minnesota. Given the circumstances, you could not trust that defense to hold Minnesota to 0 points, or God forbid, if we kick a field goal at the end and we go up by, what, it would have been 4. If we go up by 4, I wouldn't even be able to trust the defense to keep Minnesota out of the end zone. Like, you just never know with this defense. They are not anywhere near as lights out as they used to be. It's a problem. They had a big interception today. Dom DeLuca, I've not made fun of him. I've critiqued him for a large chunk of this year. I just don't think he should be a linebacker for this current iteration of Penn State football. I think he's too slow. I think he's easily targeted by a lot of opposing offenses. Danielson on the broadcast today pointed it out like twice, where Minnesota was just going for that matchup. Whatever receiver or tight end is being covered by Dom DeLuca, throw it to them. Came up with a pick that was huge, and it was a game changer, but I worry about this linebacker core as a whole. For a school that used to be linebacker U, I get it, Abdul Carter technically was a linebacker, and then we moved him to DN, but I don't know about the linebackers. I don't know about the whole philosophy of this defense, and how many times are they going to jump off sides? It's crazy. It's so undisciplined. We're now 11 games through the year, and we're seeing this pop up almost every single week. They jump off sides all the time, in crucial downs too. We had a 3rd and 9 defensively. We jump off sides, and now all of a sudden it's 3rd and 4. Minnesota can run the football. They did. They picked up 4 yards and got the first down. Like, what are we doing? These are veteran guys on the defensive line, and they can't stop jumping off sides. And Franklin will always say, now, I just gave Franklin a ton of credit at the beginning of the video. This is absolutely a knock against him. He said it repeatedly. Yeah, we got to get that cleaned up. That can't be happening. We're going to make sure that these guys, when they do this type of stuff, they'll be punished and they'll be able to come back and not make that mistake again. They're still making the mistakes, bro. It happened twice today. It's happened so many times this season. We are, I think, in the back half of the country, at least we were last week, in penalty yardage. Well, I remember one time I checked, we were like 86th or something like that in fewest penalty yardage. Like, this is just not a disciplined defense. And it's a shame. They got a lot of dudes, a lot of playmakers, but my God, I don't trust them at all. I just think they're undisciplined. I don't trust the philosophy from Tom Allen. And yeah, if we had to give the ball back to Minnesota today, only being up by 1 with 5 minutes left in the game, 4 minutes left in the game, I would have been sweating bullets, which is a problem because in the past, I would never have those concerns. I would never have concerns when we have them, pinned 3rd and long, that we're going to let up a first down. I knew we were going to stop them. Can't say that about this defense. It's a shame. So I talked about how Minnesota was able, at least in the first half, to run on us pretty well. Our running game is a problem. They were able to get going a little bit in the second half. We still wound up outgaining Minnesota on the ground. But that being said, where was Catron? Singleton struggled to get going. There were plenty of times, too, where we're in short yardage situation and we just couldn't get a yard. And we're having to put in Tyler Warren as a Wildcat quarterback instead of just being able to line it up and saying, no, we're going to get this. It's a yard. Rely on the offensive line. Rely on our 2 great running backs. We're going to pick up a yard. We couldn't do it. And that is a real bummer. And it's part of the reason why we were 1 of 11 on 3rd down. Franklin always says, well, why did we stink at 3rd down? Because we didn't do our job on 1st and 2nd down. Couldn't run the football on 1st or 2nd down. And it was putting us, I think the average yardage to go on those third downs was like 6.5 yards. We were in 3rd and long a lot. And it was because we couldn't get anything going in the run game. Only had 10 yards rushing in the first half. That's a problem. Part of that is because the offensive line is banged up. Donka, he can't stay healthy. I feel terrible for him. It's like something new every single week. He's just re-aggravating these injuries. He's really banged up. The offensive line as a whole is pretty banged up. And I don't know if it's because they just weren't creating the gaps. I don't know. But we just could not get the running game going. And it's been something that's plagued this team for the back half of this season, pretty much the entirety of it. I mean, starting with the USC game. Couldn't really run in the USC game. Singleton hasn't fully been right, I don't think, ever since he had to sit out the UCLA game. He's had some stuff lingering, I would imagine. I don't know. Also had a weird situation. Was it last week where he had to leave the game? Or he didn't? Or no, it might have been against Washington. But regardless, I don't think he's been fully healthy. Catron, it was a weird situation with him today where he didn't have like a single touch in the first half. Don't know what was up there. The run game is an issue. I worry about it a lot. And for a team that was second in the Big Ten coming into today in rushing yards per game, had the second best rushing offense in the Big Ten, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in it going into the postseason. I don't know what's going on. It's really odd. Related to the run game, the Bo Perbula package needs to stop. We need to nip this in the butt. I can't believe that we are willingly, when Drew is playing so well and he's completing over 70% of his passes and he can light it up deep, we're taking the ball out of his hands in these drives where he has such a command of this offense, and we're putting it in the hands of Bo Perbula, who, when he checks into the game, the defense pretty much knows this is a run. And with him in the game and Drew still on the field, Drew's no part of the play. You're going 10 guys versus 11 guys, and we're just getting stopped on every single one of these options from Bo Perbula or the RPOs, whatever. There's no threat of him throwing. So I don't know why we keep rolling this out. I think especially in a season where Drew Aller has really, really improved his mobility, and we saw it on that last play and on the touchdown run and everything. Like, his ability now to scramble is great. You made him shed 10 pounds specifically for that reason. Why are we putting in Bo Perbula in these situations? We put him in on a third down, like a big third down in this game today, when Drew was just trying to get into a rhythm, and you're just totally stifling that. And if your concern is, well, Bo has better legs. Well, Drew's been able to scamper and has been able to scramble and pick up yardage, and like he's been able to come up big on big third downs and fourth downs. Like I don't know. I think it's totally throwing off the rhythm of the offense. I think drives have stalled when we've put in that Bo Perbula package, and for us to willingly take the ball out of Drew Aller's hands when he is playing so efficient and making great decisions and utilizing his legs, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So I want to see zero of that in the playoff when that does ultimately come around. We still don't have a dynamic receiver. Harrison Wallace made a couple of good catches today. That it was a reassuring sign, but yeah, we're so Warren dependent, which I tweeted out. I was like, is our only play on third down in a third down obvious passing situation to throw like this short out route to Tyler Warren, short of the sticks, and then he gets tackled? Like, that's seemingly all that we do. Like, oh, it's third down? Okay, well, we got to go to Tyler. Could we get another receiver in the mix to step up and do something for us on the outside? Because Tyler Warren, I love him. He's a phenomenal playmaker. He's the best player on our offense, but you can't just lock in on him all the time. And I don't know if that's a Kotelnicki problem or a Drew problem. I don't know. But regardless, I tweeted that out. And then the next drive was the drive where Tyler Warren caught the first 3 passes and just had us march down the field with ease for a touchdown. And I was like, okay, like it works sometimes, but I don't want it. I don't want it to be our only out pitch is, oh yeah, well, we got to go to Tyler Warren, because we saw it against Ohio State where that was exploited by Ohio State a pretty decent bit, where they were like, oh, they can't have anybody else make plays aside from Tyler Warren. They just don't. They don't have the guys on the outside. So we got to fix that. Offensive line, as I said, they struggled a bit today, and they are a bit banged up. But then one of the bigger issues that hasn't really been talked about, and this is my last concern before we'll wrap this video up and get back to just the overall positive stuff. Riley Thompson at punter. Haven't talked about it all year because it's not a sexy position. Let's talk about the punter and how much he's improved or regressed this season. But he has regressed a lot. I was so excited. I was pissed that we had to lose out on Falcons coming back this year. But I was so excited when we got Riley Thompson back, because I was like, oh, like our special teams were really good last year. And now we're returning a guy who did great stuff for us in the punting game. I can't think of one time this season where he's done something great in the punting game. Oftentimes, it's like, not necessarily that he's screwing up. It's just that I'm thinking to myself in my head, oh, we have a real chance to flip field position here. Like, we've been staggering a bit in that category, and we're constantly starting back within our own 20 or our own 10. Like, this is a real opportunity now where we could really change the game. And he just always falls short and can never fully flip field position. And then today, we wind up in a situation where not only he's incapable of flipping the field position, he just runs straight into the guy trying to block the punt. And he takes 4 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it was, to get, it felt like an eternity for him to get that punt off when he's in the end zone. Like, what are we doing? It's crazy. I was stunned when I saw that. So he has been a real problem. And special teams as a whole, if you want to grade this team, special teams as a whole has been not necessarily a huge issue that's glaring. It's just not a difference maker at all. You saw Ohio State today. Caleb Downs gets a punt return for a touchdown. He's a playmaker. I don't really trust our special teams unit as a whole, aside from Ryan Barker, who's been pretty rock solid. But punting, no real difference there. No real difference that they're making there. And if it is a difference that they're making, typically it's negative like it was today. Punt returns, again, no real difference they're making there. Zion Tracy has been much better. Tyzer Denmark, I'm excited to see if we bring him on next year, and he kind of reminds me a bit of KJ Hamler, but punt return hasn't really been dynamic at all this year. Kick return has been non-existent aside from the Singleton kick return that was called back for a block in the back or a holding. I can't remember exactly what it was. But, yeah, that's been a non-factor too. And then, yeah, we're just not dynamic really in anything in the special teams. And if you're trying to find an edge, it's hard to find one. You can't say Penn State, they're so-so at this, so-so at that, but they're great at special teams. No. So I worry about that facet of the game as a whole. But those are pretty much all my concerns. If I had to grade this team as a whole, the offense can be great, but going up against elite competition, going up against these very, very rock-solid defenses, especially like in Ohio State, I don't know if we're going to be able to move the ball. I don't know if we're going to be able to rely on other people outside of Tyler Warren. I don't know. We can score points, and Drew Aller, I think, is absolutely a superstar who I love, and I love the way that he runs this offense. But in our one time this year where we played a really good defense and a really stout opponent who's up there as one of the top dogs in the country, we didn't get into the end zone once as an offense. So it worries me. Defensively, this is nowhere near the defense that we had last year or 2 years ago. So I worry about them as well. And then special teams, I don't know. I really don't know. There isn't one specific unit on this team that is sensational. And there have been teams in the past, like I point to the 2016 team. Defensively, really weren't that great. That was not a good defensive team. Offensively, though, oh my God, yeah. We were lights out offensively. Other teams in the past, especially back in the Paterno days, offensively, we were kind of lackluster, but my God, that defense of Penn State, that's going to be, one of the best defenses in the country. This team, I wouldn't say has an elite offense, even though the stats say so. I wouldn't say they have an elite defense, and they definitely don't have an elite special teams. They kind of do everything okay. They do everything solid, and it's enough to win them these games. But that's why I worry about this team going into the playoff. I don't know. I really don't know. I think this is absolutely a top 10 team. I don't think we're a number 4 team in the country. But again, we have found ways to win in situations where a lot of other teams across the country have not found ways to win. And in these games where we are favored and we're facing inferior competition, we are not losing them. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt earlier this year. There have been plenty of other, Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. Yeah, Texas has had some really close games that should not have been close. I don't know. It's a weird year, but a year that I'm very thankful for. 11-1. If you win next week against Maryland, which you should beat the brakes off of Maryland. That is a very impressive feat. And I did think that was the ceiling for this team. And if they're able to reach that ceiling, that's great. But you got to win a playoff game. That is the ultimate test. And even though, yes, Franklin has stacked up a lot of great wins this year, games that we've been able to pull out that in the past we have not been able to pull out, he will be judged by that playoff game. And if you don't win it, we could have some serious problems. But I don't know. This team has been battle-tested. The team seems to have this resilience and this dog in them that I really do admire. And they've gotten past all the hurdles on their aside from Ohio State, clearly. But all these games where they could have possibly tripped up, they didn't. Now they go into Maryland next week. They're going to finish the season most likely 11-1. And hopefully they're able to get their stuff in order in that however many weeks of preparation. And then we get a home playoff game at Beaver Stadium that is just an insane atmosphere. Home playoff game at Beaver Stadium that we could win and then we could go on a run in this new playoff. And yeah, again, anybody who's saying Penn State doesn't deserve to be in the playoff or Penn State's gotten a free pass and they've gotten this easy ride, stop. Not everybody has Georgia's strength of schedule. And I think what you saw in college football today shows you, Penn State, they find a way to win. And that should be valued in this crazy year, in this new and wacky year for college football. That should be valued. I definitely value it a lot after this game. But again, still have some concerns. Regardless, Penn State, 10-1, 1-0 this week. I think that's pretty much all I had to say about this game. It was crazy. The highlights, I'm sure I'm going to look back on and be like, I can't believe we were able to make it through this 3 hours without, just having a heart attack. But I love Penn State. I love Penn State football. We're going to be celebrating tonight. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you guys probably for a playoff preview. Hopefully, maybe after the playoff, I'll do a reaction podcast. We'll see. But regardless, until next time, this is McConnell Griffin signing off. We are 1-0.
Recording stopped.